Hello, welcome to the next masterclass. Today, winning in sales, and there couldn't be a better person than Beat to do this. We have known each other for 20 years almost.
20 years, I would say.
And you've always been a speaker at my startup days. This year I missed you there. Hopefully you'll be back next year.
We will see.
And I'm very happy you're here because you really create value, to put it this way. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Hello everybody, it's a great pleasure to be here again in this format. Today, winning in sales, I would like to give a perspective on the value proposition. The topic is really how to design a sharp, compelling value proposition for sales. My name is Beat Walther. I have more than 20 years experience in startup. My initial background was in consumer goods. I was working in Procter & Gamble and developed there this almost like mission to understand customer insights, unmet needs, and turn these insights into innovative products and sales and marketing strategies. We will talk about value proposition today. The value proposition is really something fundamental to a startup, and by now everyone knows this, and you probably as a startup have a value proposition that you use. It is part of your business plan, it's part of your business model. If you think of a business model or the business model canvas, in the center there is the value proposition. When you talk to investors, you talk about the value proposition. But the value proposition for sales is really something special because that's where the rubber hits the road. The value proposition, the customer value proposition is really key. And it has to be special. It has to be really resonating. It has to make click with the customer. Otherwise, he will simply not buy. A customer judges with his wallet. That's the value he gives you. An investor or a coach or anyone who is not a customer will judge the value proposition from a different angle. If you look at what is a value proposition? It's very simple. A value proposition is the value you propose as a company or the value that your product proposes to the market. I use the word promise instead of proposal because it makes clear that it is a promise to the market. It's not just a product that you have, it's really a promise that you make to your future customer. And at each step in the sales process, you need a very specific value proposition. If you think about sales, there are many important topics in sales. One important topic is the sales process. Very early in the startup phase, you will develop a sales process that is right for your business. They all look a little bit different, but this is a generic one that you see here on the screen. It's taken from a startup that I coach at the moment, who is Legartis. I will talk a bit more about it. It is a legal startup in legal tech. They evaluate contracts with artificial intelligence. And they have a very clear sales process. It starts with prospecting. They prospect companies of different sizes and different industries, specifically to legal counsels or purchasing departments. And that's the prospecting phase where they go out with a value proposition. Value proposition to gain an interest and talk to them. Then they are in the step of qualifying leads, which is basically finding out if this company is a good fit for the product they have. They call it qualify the leads. And again, you need a value proposition to keep on talking, to have a next meeting. Then they move into the next phase, which they call develop leads. It's really about showing the product, making demonstrations, even go into pilot phases. Again, it needs a value proposition to go into this next step. Then comes the close the sales, closing, which is really asking for, make the customer ask for a proposal, start to negotiate and go on. And again, you need a value proposition for this. Execute is implementing. Very often I've seen in my life that a product or project has been sold, and when it comes to implementation, it stops again. And then, of course, there's the last phase, grow the customer, which typically in a startup comes later. So at each step in the sales process, you promise a value to trigger an action and even to break an existing habit. Many value propositions that I've seen they're good, they're kind of right, but they don't bite. They don't have the power to break a habit. Value propositions have to be habit breakers. Why is that? An innovation or a startup in general almost always replaces an existing habit. It replaces an existing product, for example, or it replaces an existing way of doing something. And it is in general, an innovation always replaces something that was here before. If you take consumer goods, you take a consumer, I was working in detergents, for example, washing powder. You have a new detergent, you bring it into the market, it's on the shelf, so you have to break a habit of the consumer taking something else, trying something else, using it while he or she is maybe happy with the existing product. Why should he or she change? Why should he change something new if he or she is happy with the existing product? Take a doctor, dermatologist, she, let's say, uses a certain cream, a certain drug. Since 10 years, whenever a patient comes in and shows a certain condition, she prescribes this drug, this cream. Patient is happy, almost, all the time, maybe sometimes not. She is happy because after 15, she could help, and after 15 minutes, the patient goes out. Why should she take a new drug? Okay, maybe there are clinical data showing that it is better on certain elements, that it has a better safety data, that it is more effective in certain cases, but still, it really has to be good in data, has to do something that has not been done before, that the habit changes. If you go into business to business, let's say, why should a manufacturer change a supplier? Very often suppliers are friends, there is a relationship. Why change that if the value is not really a habit breaker? It's an interesting, maybe a little bit of background on this. If you look at new technology, how long does it take to be adopted in the market? There are these nice curves on the internet. You can test it out for yourself. They show basic technologies coming into the market. Really fundamental technologies. And every technology, also your startup, follows an S-curve. And this has to do with these habits. At the beginning, there is a slow start, then it accelerates, and at the end, it flattens out. So if you look at this slide, for example, the yellow line, color TV, it took 15 years until it was fully adopted by the market. If you take a great invention like the internet, which I think is the red line at the end, if you look at it, great technology, we all use it now every day, it took 15 to 20 years until it was adopted. Social media usage, that's the last line. We are not yet at 80% when the line was drawn. Today, probably we are at 80, 90%. An innovation replaces a habit, and the value proposition, therefore, has to be a habit breaker. Maybe another reason why it has to be really compelling and a habit breaker is this, which many of you know. A market is always consisting of innovators and early adopters. In general, it's 15% of the market. They will try your product first, but that's not the big market. There's the early majority coming, there's the late majority coming, the laggards maybe at one point in time, and that takes time. And therefore you need a very strong, very sharp value proposition to sell. Now, When you think about your product, or let's put it like this, why are value propositions not habit breakers? Why they are not so compelling? One of the reasons I believe is because innovators or startups think too much about their technology. They think they have a fantastic technology and it's very easy to apply. Customers think the other way around. They think, oh, this is a lot of change I have to do, and there is no value in it. So there's a double mismatch between startups, or in general, innovators, technologists. Every day they work with their technology. They think it's very easy to apply because they're very used to it. And customers think, wow, this is a lot of change to me. There is no real value. Looking for an example, let's take a startup who has invented a watch, and it's a nice looking watch. It's even a mechanic watch, but in this mechanic watch, gold, etc., really looks nice. There is a GSM module. You can press a button and you are connected directly to a helpline. Great technology, easy to apply. The technologists think. Target market is elderly people, people above 70, 75. They are at risk of falling. One of the most, real problem. Older people tend to fall. Then they don't have a helpline. They are alone. They lay on the floor, and this is really a problem. So, very good technology, very easy to apply. You just have to put a watch on. But the customer thinks, why should I change my watch? Customer, elderly people, very often have not fallen before. So why should they wear something for a situation or a case or an incident that has never happened? Why should he or she change? What's the value of this? So there's a typical mismatch of what the innovator think and what the customers think. I see this all the time. In love with technology, very easy to apply, and the customer thinks a lot of change, no value. I say the product is the biggest enemy of a strong value proposition. Thinking product too much is not very good in general in sales. So I will ask you now 6 simple questions, helping you to design a really compelling value proposition. Here are the 6 questions. We'll come back to it, but they're really simple. Who is your customer? Is the first question. What do you want your customers to do? Second question. What does your customer want to achieve? Third question. What's your customer's strongest pain point? What is your promise, and how can you prove your promise? There are red and purple questions. The purple questions are company or product related questions. They are inside out, asked from the perspective of you as a company. And the red questions are customer related questions. They should be answered outside in. We will go through these questions now. First question is a purple question. Who is your customer? That's quite obvious. And that's really a marketing question. And as a startup, I've seen many startups struggling with this. It can be very simple. When there is one customer, let's say in consumer goods, there's one customer, one end customer. You sell directly to this customer. Let's take the case of the watch. It's the elderly people, so that is your customer. But it can become complicated. Who is the customer, for example, for a medical product? Is it, let's take the cream for the dermatologist, or let's take a hearing aid innovation. Who is the customer? Okay, it's the person who uses it, who has the hearing problem. It is the family members who suffer from the hearing problem of their loved ones. Could be the doctor, the hearing, how is it called? ENT doctor, it's called. It could be the audiologist. the audiologist who fits typically these hearing aids, or it could be the insurance company, which is called the payer. So you have a different set of stakeholders, and they are all influencing the purchase and the use decision. So there it's really getting complicated. And very often in medical and in many markets, you have these different sets of stakeholders that all influence the purchase decision. And each of these stakeholders have an own value proposition. They have, we will see that right in a minute. If you take business to business, for example, where you typically sell to a company, well, there is the rule, it's not the company that buys, but it's people in the company they buy. And these people all have specific needs, have a specific background, and you have to address them with a different value proposition. There is the great concept which is called the buying center in B2B. Buying center is a term from sales, and it defines 5 different roles in the decision process of a company. There is the champion. The champion is the one who really wants your solution, wants your product, and you need a champion helping you to get into a company. Champion typically sets up the meeting, he responds quickly to your request. The champion convinces the others in the organization, and there is a rule, no champion, no sale. If you have in the sales funnel any leads in there and there are no real champions, probably a very low likelihood that you will sell. Then there is the user, that is in business to business very often different. So the user is the one who uses your product. Let's say, let's take an example from IT. There is a startup who develops a ERP add-on. So it's an add-on to SAP, for example, which scans and analyzes invoices. Basically, the invoice comes in paper form, all kinds of formats, scans it in and puts all the information automatically into the SAP system. Here, the user are the people normally dealing with the invoices, and they are not buying the solution. It's someone else who buys the solution. For example, it's the admin director or the CFO that buys the solution. Then the third group is the budget holder. A budget holder is someone who pays really, who holds the budget, signs the check, and it can be that in a decision process, the budget holder you never see, but there is someone else paying the bill, and this someone else will probably challenge the champion if it really makes sense to buy a solution or not. So he's typically in a challenger role. And then there are 2 more type of people in the buying center. One is the guardian. The guardians is quite an interesting and important member of this group. The guardian is someone who guards and overviews all the rules and the regulations. They make sure that nothing goes wrong. The guardian does not have an interest in a solution. They have an interest in complying to the rules. You see a lot of guardians in IT, purchasing, for example, typically are guardians. They have a different value proposition. They need a different value proposition than, for example, the champion. And then often there is an enemy who doesn't like your solution, and the enemy has to be also dealt with. The first question really in sales is an internal question. When you are in a contact with a potential client and it's a business-to-business situation, ask yourself, what is the buying center? Who are the members in the buying center? What could be the different roles? And your value proposition has to be designed to these different people. If you see them. Sometimes you don't see them, but they also need argument. So that's the first question. The next question, what do you want your customer to do? This is also a purple question. It's a question about what you want. It's basically a strategy or a tactical question. And it has to be defined before you start with a sales meeting, for example. I mentioned already before, in sales, you want an action from your customer. You can list these actions that you want along the sales process. Let's take the example of Legatis at the beginning. They are prospecting out into hundreds of companies. They're using special activities like webinar, like mailings, newsletters, etc. And one of the key actions that they want at the beginning is listen to me, tune to my messages, which is not easy in the current or in this noise of information that is going on. So the value proposition has to make sure, has to sell that the prospect is listening. Then next action could be call me or mail me. That's the action that you want to trigger. Call me, mail me, contact me in one form or another. That's already a big action. I mean, taking the phone or writing an email needs energy, and it is an action. Agree to a demo, agree to a pilot is an action often. Ask me for a proposal. It's the best in sales if the customer asks you about the proposal and you don't enforce the proposal. So the action is ask me for a proposal, and really negotiate on the price. Implement or use my product, ask for more. That has to be defined. Whenever you are in a sales meeting or in a sales activity, ask yourself, what do you want the customer to do? What's the action? Second question. Now we come to the third question. This question sounds maybe a little bit odd. What does your customer want to achieve? What's the goal of your customer? I'll ask this in that way because it is building on a concept that is really great, which is called jobs to be done. Some of you might have heard this concept. It's a great concept in innovation. And what this concept does is it moves salespeople and also innovators, developers, away from the solution, away from the technology, towards the needs and problems of the customer. Jobs to be done, the easiest way of defining it is people don't want a drill, they want a hole in the wall. This is a quote from Ted Levitt, was done in the 60s or 70s, and it's exactly what is needed in sales and in product development. Move away from your solution, move into the problem of the customer. And jobs to be done allows that. I use jobs to be done really every day in sales. I use it also in our other projects that we do, which have to do with innovation and development. Jobs to be done is a fantastic concept to forget about the solution and start thinking about the customer and the problem of the customer. I always frame it as a pyramid. I ask myself, let's say this is a startup of a smart cooking device. So it's kind of pots and pans with a lot of technology in it, and it helps to cook. So the jobs to be done for this is, let's say, feed my family. That's the job. This job can be broken down into different steps. And the moment you do that, you realize how rich and how complicated also this feed my family job is. It starts with refining my nutrition values, get ideas for a menu, plan and prepare, including buying ingredients, then really cook, supervise the cooking process, eat and clean up. Now you imagine this smart cooking device startup who has some bells and whistle Bluetooth features and temperature control and some audio warnings, etc. Really helps the cooking process. You can ask, why do you start at the beginning? Because they also have these great ideas of linking the smart device with recipes over the internet. And there's many features that this smart cooking solution has. So the question is, where does it fit in here? The customer does not want to have a smart cooking device. The customer wants to feed his family. That's the mindset. That's what the customer wants to achieve. And by doing this, these customers go through a certain step, which starts from defining my nutrition values, things like healthy, being vegan, etc. Get ideas. So that's where this smart cooking device fits in. On the higher level, even, there are some emotional elements like be valued, be appreciated, be liked, be loved. So this is typically playing into this. So that's the third question is a great starting point in sales, asking yourself, sorry, I have to go back, asking yourself, what does your customer want to achieve? It leads you and startups away from the solution towards the problem of the customer. This I skip. Come to the fourth question. The fourth question is about the key of selling. What's your customer's pain? It's the key of a value proposition. What's the pain? What's the problem that the customer has? This problem is absolutely key in a value proposition. And this problem has to hurt. That's why I call it pain. What causes pain? What wakes up the customer at 4 o'clock in the morning? And this is the key of the value proposition. The value proposition is built around this pain. No pain, no sell. No pain, no value. Value makes only sense if there is a pain. If there is no pain, there is zero value. So that's the fourth question. What's the pain of your customer when trying to achieve a job, when trying to achieve a goal? Now, there are only 3 or 4 types of pains when people try to achieve something. And that's the good news. It can take too long. Time. Things take too long, or there are too many steps to do something. It can simply not be possible. Let's say electricity through the air is not possible. But if you have a battery solution, it is suddenly possible. Third one is if something goes wrong, it sometimes goes wrong. So the result of an activity sometimes goes wrong. Or 4, it's not accessible, it's too costly. That's another area. So these are kind of the typical types of problems and pains that come out when people try to get to achieve something or try to get a job done. And that's key in the value proposition, to find the most relevant pain that your solution can address. Maybe another word on this pain. A pain is another word for an unmet need or a problem. And I'm sure many of you know this concept here, the Maslow pyramid, which is also very important in business-to-business sales. This Maslow pyramid says there are different categories of needs. It starts with some basic needs, physiological needs, safety needs, belongingness and love, esteem, recognition, and then self-actualization or creating something. And this plays really strongly in business-to-business sales. It starts already with the safety need. Why should a champion become a champion? Why should someone in a company become a champion for a very innovative startup solution which is not proven? There is a lot of concern to take an unproven startup solution from a small little company that might not work out. And that's the safety needs. That's why people don't embrace your solution, because they are fearing to lose their job in the end. By pushing a solution that is not proven and then it doesn't work out, a lot of money is spent. Safety. Belongingness and love. Why should a champion engage with a new solution if it goes wrong? Or why should he engage with a new solution if it goes right? I mean, if this solution is really great and does something for a company, then he becomes basically loved. He is the hero in this company, which is the second, the third, and the fourth level, and so on. So what I want to say with this is, try to go deeper when you discover pains. Try to really understand the psychology behind problems and behind people that you talk to in sales. Drama. A pain very often doesn't hurt. So try to dramatize the pain. The drama is really the consequence when a pain is not solved, when a pain continues. And that's the drama. Dramatization is important to trigger an action. When you look at consumer goods advertising, for example, very often this is dramatized. It's very dramatic problems or very dramatic visualization of the problem. That's the drama. And you can use that in business to business as well. In business to business, it is a question that you can ask when you are when you're designing your value proposition, is the question, what happens if the pain is not solved? I'll give you an example. There is a virtual reality solution which is called Inspation. Inspation basically helps you design buildings, the inside of a building with virtual reality. It is used for complex buildings like hospitals, for example. So typically you have an architect and you have a builder, owner of the hospital, who builds a new hospital. It's, by the way, a huge market. And what this virtual reality solution allows is you can, instead of judging the inside based on 2D plans or on simple 3D visualizations, it allows to go into the hospital before the hospital is even built. And it allows to go into an operation arena, and all the furniture is already there, and it's a room like 10 and 10 meters. There's nothing in this room, only the virtual reality glass, and you can be in this room and you can start to design the room. This is today done not with virtual reality, but with very simple cardboard models. They really do that. They invite the doctors and the hospital personnel into a big room. They build this in cardboard way, and they try to simulate the processes. Now, this can be done in virtual reality. Okay, so the pain is basically to plan this. Today is very complicated to plan it with cardboard. The pain is really, it's complicated. You have to do it, building it up. It's costly. That's really the pain that these hospitals have. But the drama is, it doesn't work. The drama is what happens if you still do a mistake and you build a hospital and the processes afterwards don't work. That's the drama. And the drama is, it will cost you afterwards for the next 20 years when this hospital is built, every day additional costs, because the patients cannot come in. It can even kill lives, because in an urgency, it doesn't go fast enough, because you missed something by doing these very crude simulations with card boxes. The drama is people are killed because you do wrong construction of the insides. That's why this trick of the drama is quite important. Ask, what are the consequences of not solving the pain? No pain, no sell. That's the key of the value proposition. It has to be built around this pain. Next question, fifth question. Now the pain is clear, the drama is on the table. What can you promise with your solution? Now you see this is still something red. It has to do with the outside. What can you promise? The promise is the solution of the pain. In consumer goods, there are fantastic promises. There is the promise, let's say, think different. Apple promises that if you use Apple, you think different. Great promise. One I love is Nike. Just do it. You can do it when you use Nike. This was a totally different promise at the time when it came out. The competition was Adidas and Puma. Their promise was basically, we have so good shoes that even the German football team uses it. That's the promise. Okay, shoes are good. But the promise of Nike was, if you use Nike, you can do it. And that's very good. So consumer goods are very good in making strong promises. Business to business can also be, this is somehow, this is blocked. In business to business can also be used, should be used. What's the promise in business to business? So this was Legartis before we sharpened the value proposition. It said contract intelligence solution built for modern corporate operations. And then in the subline it says Legartis harnesses the power of artificial intelligence to help you make legal decisions up to 10 times faster. So the promise at the time was very small type, but it was there. It says helps you make legal decisions 10 times faster. That's a promise. But dominantly it was no promise in this on this website, on this business. The new one is Legartis promises you to accelerate your contract review and increases precisions. So the pain behind this was slow contract reviews in business. That's the pain. And the second pain behind this was that there are mistakes in the contract review because humans were doing it. And when humans do something, mistakes happen. So it increases the precision of the contract review. So that's typical promise talk that was applied in the Legartis case. Now, when we promise something, we learned as a kid, you have to prove it. Because promising something which will not be delivered, that is not what really works. So that's the last question. How can you prove your promise when you design the value proposition? And there are three ways to prove. One is technical explanations. So here, there comes in the explanation how your product works, how your technology works, and that is important. It's an important proof, but unfortunately it's the weakest proof that you have. A stronger proof is data that it works. What are evidence and data showing that it really works in the promise? And the last one is the testimonial. That's even stronger. If a testimonial or a reference of another client says, this works, let's say Legartis works, this technical contract review worked in our case, that means that's the strongest proof. That's much stronger than a proof like artificial intelligence helping for it. Okay, keeping promise is important. That's why the proof is important in the value proposition. So how compelling is your value proposition for sales? I suggest you test. We have put these 6 questions basically in a kind of a canvas. You have them here. It is 1, for which customer group? 2, what is the desired action or the habit that you want to achieve? Then you move on the customer side and say, what's the goals of the customer? What does the customer want to achieve? Then what are the pain points and the drama when trying to achieve this? How do we have to make the promise? And then the 6th point, how do we prove that this promise will become true? So that's kind of a canvas. It's the same thing that we just went through. It's just a checklist. And this really helps to design a much stronger value proposition. I do this with the startups and with established companies. With the startups, I have a support module in InnoSwiss. If you go for InnoSwiss coaching, You can book expert modules. There's some great modules for different topics like pitching, like finance, and there is also this sales acceleration module, which I do, which helps to design a value proposition really as we have outlined here, and move it from a no habit breaking, probably very technological, boring value proposition to a compelling, sharp value proposition. That's what I wanted to share for this masterclass. Maybe there are some questions. Thank you very much. I hope to see you in your journey towards success, and I would be happy to help and sharpen your proposition.